according to the cloud.
All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Bryan and I have a special edition of the Design It podcast for you, where we are going to tell you about some of, in our opinion, the most important things happening in technology in the past, well, week, months, just the recent past. How about that?
Right. And some of the things we just think are super awesome and
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So, I want to get started. Bryan, there's something you want to talk about that I think we should bring up, and that's the I call it Dogecoin. I know that's not correct. So go ahead. Why don't you kick us off with that? Because I think
it's interesting. So we've seen a lot of with Elon Musk and cryptocurrency and how he's changing, the market. But one of the more interesting things to me on it is the fact that, obviously he's privatizing space. We've seen this going on for years now. But the fact that he's using Dogecoin to actually fund satellites, to go around the moon, I think is what it was. But the mere fact that we're using actually cryptocurrency as possibly the currency for outer space becomes more interesting to me, in the fact that it's in the fact that what's going on with privatization of space. So it may not be based on gold or silver or your dollar getting you there or building stuff, or that's going to be the currency. And even, if we ever populate Mars, right? Or I should say when we populate Mars. But, what's going to happen is that currency may be a completely different currency, this cryptocurrency that has its own, intrinsic value in some way.
So I have one that I thought was really important. And it's pretty, talked about amongst the electronics industry, right? The chip shortage. And so I saw recently that the president of IBM told the BBC that he expects this chip shortage to go on for at least 2 years. So I thought that was really important. Yeah. And I think part of what he attributed that to is simply the lag between, when you actually start development and then get to the fabrication plant and then the chips actually come out. So it's just, obviously, this gentleman's name, the president, Jim Whitehurst, is attributing that to some of the surge during the pandemic in gadgets and electronics and all kinds of things like that, initially. But it's crazy to me that that's going to go on for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy about that? Did you see that video of all those Ford? I think they were all F-150s, which is the most popular car in the U.S. And there was literally like a runway just with it looked like infinite amount of Ford F-150s just parked on it, just parked waiting for, I don't know how real or fake it was, or do you know what I mean? If it's just like a Ford lot, I don't know. But it was a crazy video of all these Fords that supposedly were waiting because there was a chip shortage to, be delivered. Okay. All right, before we move on to the next one, I want to turn my air conditioner off because I don't know if it's going to pick that up.
Okay.
Okay, and it just turned itself off. Okay, but I just want to turn it off so it doesn't keep going on and off. Okay. Do you want me to do the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So another thing I found super interesting is for the first time, in my opinion, or that I know of, you could actually really buy sort of these elaborate commercial grade robots, right? We see that with Boston Dynamics. I mean, we've all seen the videos years ago of Big Dog and all these things, but now you could actually buy, and they ramped up, I think late last year, actually being able to buy Spot, and they actually were able to add an arm to its back. And it's pretty insane that these like high level commercial grade robots are now available to the public.
That's pretty cool. Can I buy one?
You can. I mean, I saw a video of one actually herding sheep. Someone was using it to herd sheep. They were using this robotic, a dog. I mean, they call it Spot. I guess it's a dog, right? To herd sheep, which is insane if you think about it for a second.
Come on, let's get one for EDI. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Oh, goodness. Well, another what I deem super important this week, actually, the U.S. Army revealed the range of its new hypersonic weapon. So do you want to take a guess at how many miles it can reach?
Let's see. 10,000.
All right, you're pushing it. No, you're 1,725 miles.
Wow.
And it flies 17 times the speed of sound.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. So that they're going to be testing that in 2 years, in 2023. They'll roll out the testing on that.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool, actually. One of my favorite things, and just because I love technology and I love sort of like archaeology, you know, they're two of my favorite things, is some of the stuff that's going on with actually LiDAR and how they're using LiDAR now to actually, you know, and this is nothing new. This has been going on for a few years, but how they're using LiDAR to find like Mayan ruins. And I think like less than a year ago, they found one of the biggest Mayan temples. But what's really interesting about that to me is now we have a quadricopter on Mars, right? You know, we're with our rovers. Are we eventually going to start using LiDAR to find ancient civilizations that maybe have died out on other planets, such as Mars or, you know, other planets, as we do more and more space exploration? And obviously, let's be having some exploration going on by a fly or something over there. I don't know what's going on.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I actually just read about they're actually figured out a way to shrink the size of LiDAR components to the size of a finger, I believe it was. Right. So I wonder if that's, you know, driving any of those future innovations that they can use with the technology to do some of that stuff.
Yeah, and if you think about space, I mean, like, think about this, like, not even just us, you know, as some other life forms that are out there, they're probably doing the same thing we are, you know, sending robotic life out into the universe to find other life, right? So the more and more those components could be shrunk down, the further and further they could get, the more and more data we could get, and the more and more civilizations, you know, we may be able to find, or even civilizations that have died out, finding those even, it's important also.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I have another one.
Okay.
So, and this one I thought was really interesting, just because of who we are too. You know, we're not only tech people, we're also marketing people, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So Ford patented a new technology. Now, this is super cool. It's a system that uses the cameras on the vehicle to detect billboards, okay, out in the real world, and then brings that information back into the vehicle and displays it on your infotainment display. How cool is that?
That is pretty cool. You know, most people are going to turn that option off, though.
Yeah, I know. For me, it sounds really cool, though, because I just think all the possibilities about getting our. You could EDI billboards, and they're just scanned into the car, right?
And it's sending information. I mean, what's cool about that, though? The cool part about that is not just the billboards, and I get what you're saying from the marketing perspective, but it's actually being able to take, you know, because as we look at autonomous vehicles and as vehicles get smarter and smarter, taking input from the outside world and bringing it in, right? You know, the car is using all that data to go, okay, I need to drive here, be safe, or slow down, or speed up, and you know, and it's talking to the road, it's talking to, you know, it's in, you know, it could be interacting with surroundings like other vehicles. But what's really interesting is able to take in other information that it sees and bring it in. Like, hey, at this next stop, there's, you know, Cracker Barrel, and do you know what I mean? Like this and that. So you can figure out what's coming up and whether you even want to go there, or there's, you know, an amusement park, or there's some attraction you may want to go to. So that is actually interesting, because you could, when you see a billboard for something, you're just like, okay, it's located there. It doesn't give you any information. Is that attraction something I want to stop at, right? Where this could actually go, it'd be like you going and watching a YouTube video where that biggest ball of yarn in the world, and seeing if you want to stop there or not, you know?
I want to see the biggest ball of yarn in the world.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I want to see the biggest rubber band ball. Did you ever see that thing?
All right. So speaking of vehicles, I know that we talk a lot about electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles. You always have lots of questions about power and wireless and what. So I'm here to tell you that researchers have finally created a way to charge a vehicle while it is driving. Nice. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, because I needed to understand exactly how they were doing this. So researchers from Cornell University were working on this new wireless charging method. And basically what they did is they used insulated metal plates on the ground connected to a power line through a matching network. And they used a high frequency inverter. Now what they did then, this then creates this electric field that sends the current through the circuit onto the vehicle where it charges the battery.
So it's basically like those plates that have wireless power that you could put like in your garage, but it's throughout the whole roadway is what I'm getting. And
they created them very lightweight and easy to kind of embed anywhere. That was, I think, one of the draws. So let's see.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because think about it, as roads are being redone, right? Whether they could be on top of the blacktop, or it's going to be interesting, or whether it's going to be slightly under the blacktop so they don't get as much wear and tear.
Right.
So that way they're protected a little bit, right? But when they redo roads, you could totally see that. And as we, start, working on our infrastructure more and more, that's actually something they should start really planning on building in.
Now, my question is, what does that do to the cost of road repair down the road then? Down the road. Think about that. Think about what it takes to get a regular road redone. Now, if you're, every time if you have potholes or this or, ice and stuff like that, the weather, now how do you repair as quickly or as cheaply, cost effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a consideration, but I think one of the really cool parts is, that could be done around this is you could really do this in a very, I want to say environmentally friendly way, and I'm gonna actually clarify that. But you could use a lot of solar panel power along those roads, because if you're able to power those plates with solar panels, you could line the side of the road with the solar panels. But absolutely, these things are massive costs. They're not cheap. Just even building the roadways again is a massive cost. But imagine having now to have like electricians out there,
Right.
wiring stuff, or embedding solar panels into this, especially in remote areas, where they may not even necessarily have power at the street already, because there are very remote areas, in almost every country where there's no power even at the street. So, if you're going to do something like that and build that infrastructure, there is probably going to be a really high cost to it.
But they are working on it. So that's pretty cool.
Let's see.
All right. I have to ask you a question. So,
Sure.
All right. So I came across this and I want to share this with you. So tell me, how we always say that our phones die because they want you to buy a new one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it turns out that we are not crazy. It turns out we are not crazy, Bryan. So I'm going to read you this paper I found.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It is from the USPIRG. I'm not sure what that stands for. It's a right to repair company that released this paper. So basically, they're saying that obsolescence is a failure of design, and that we are actually not crazy because I'm going to cut this here because I want to find the paragraph. Hold on. I want to find the statistic. Okay. So basically they're saying we are not crazy, this organization. And there's a short lifespan of appliances. Now, this is not new. This actually started in the 1970s, they're saying. And it says that they use this example of a water pressure sensor. And it detects the liquid in the washer and then tells the machine, right? And so the part costs $60, but replacing it, that would take you other parts and $200. To replace the part, you have to replace a million other parts. I mean, this whole thing, and this kind of leads up to what we talk about a lot with our phones and all of our electronics, and they're dying because they want you to buy a new one, and so there's actually a campaign. The Right to Repair campaign was launched in the EU, actually, and they're really like focusing on creating replacement parts and things where you don't have to get a new whatever every time something breaks, and making it more user friendly. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, the right to repair has sort of been around for a long time, right? It's a concept of when certain phone manufacturers, maybe they design their batteries in, or maybe they design their batteries in, or certain components in that actually do have some life expectancy of maybe 3 years or 5 years or whatever the case is, right? So is that intentional, or is that just bad design? I don't know. I think it depends on the company, because I'm sure some of it is very intentional, and some of it may just be like they didn't think that far out. They say the average expectancy of that product is 3 years, so therefore, if I design something that lasts 3 years, did my job. But I agree. The right to repair and to salvage these things, I mean, it's not just good for the consumer. Excuse me. It's not just good for the consumer, but it's also good for the environment. And especially as we run into things like we just talked about, having a chip shortage, right? So if you're not able to produce these things, there is going to be more of a need to repair them if it's just like replacing the battery or replacing like the optics in the camera or whatever the case in a device. What happens is it is hard. I mean, I'll give you a story. I mean, the story, and I'm not, one of my computers, the camera went, the forward facing camera went, and because of the company, and part of it was restrictive to COVID, right? But part of it was the fact that they wanted 8 weeks to repair, 6 to 8 weeks to actually repair my computer, even though it was under warranty, which is crazy. I mean, I'm a pretty handy guy when it comes to technology. Like, send me a new screen that, you're telling me it's built into the screen and you can't replace the component. So you got to send me a new screen, send me the whole screen. It's one connector on the board. Do you know what I mean? And a few screws, right? But, my point is, as there are shortages, there's going to be more of a need to repair devices versus just replacing devices. And I think you're going to see, especially like you said, that gentleman from IBM saying there could be a shortage for 2 years. What, are we going to not have certain types of devices for 2 years, or is it just going to skyrocket the prices to whoever could afford to pay more is going to be able to get the new device versus, the average consumer?
Yeah. So I'm interested to. I'm interested to hear everybody else's thoughts on this topic. I know a lot of people say this. So if you have any thoughts on repairing and component obsolescence, if you want to talk to us about the chip shortage, if you have a great idea for getting us to Mars, let us know, and we'd love to talk about it on our next episode.
Okay, ending the broadcast.